How would you like to get more leads from your Facebook page? Well, keep listening because we'll answer that question in today's episode. Welcome to another episode of Content Creators Unite, the show where we discuss all things content creation. So if you want to learn how to grow your business using your blog, newsletters, books, Facebook posts, and more, hey, you're in the right place. I'm your host, John Clements. Our guest for today's episode is Deirdre Tshien. Deirdre is the founder and CEO of Capsho, an AI-powered content marketer that helps entrepreneurs to podcast, vlog, and livestream create repurposed content that converts. She's also the creator of the Honey Trap Method, the author of Honey Trap Marketing, and host of the Win the Content game. So Deirdre, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, John. This is going to be an awesome conversation. I'm so pumped.
I think so too. So before we dig into Facebook leads and organic marketing and that kind of content, I do want to get to know you a little bit better. Can you just share with me and the audience a little bit about your background and how you got into your current role?
Yeah, I'll try to keep this super short because I've been in entrepreneurship for quite a while. By way of background, I started my career in banking. You picked it, John, as soon as I started talking, but I grew up in Australia, in Sydney, Australia. So I was working in one of the biggest investment banks in Australia. Corporate, like a lot of people who are probably listening to this, was just not the path for me. And so I kind of, fell into entrepreneurship in a way. The first business, which I do not recommend as a first business at all, my husband and I opened a hospitality place. So we actually opened dessert bars. We grew that to 5 locations, which was super hard. We had burger restaurants as well. We had 2 of those. And then one thing led to another. I started exploring like another tech platform with another co-founder, actually, someone who I had met in banking. And we made the move over to the States. My husband was still remotely running the hospitality businesses back in, so he was with us in the US, but he was running them, it was that was a lot. And when we actually failed the technology business, it was actually in fashion tech that we were working on. We spent about 4 to 5 months really exploring that idea, and we decided to fail that idea. We fell into, like all good entrepreneurship journeys, we fell into agency work, actually working with e-commerce brands, and then then COVID hit. We transitioned fully online, started a coaching business, helping e-commerce brands grow. And that's when we had our first podcast. And it was at that time that we were trying to, not only grow a business, but also grow this audience for this podcast. It felt like we were kind of running 2 different businesses. I don't know if you sometimes feel like this way, John, and others listening to this, when you're like, okay, I'm trying to get an audience for my business, but I'm also trying to get an audience for my podcast. They're linked, obviously, but it felt kind of counterintuitive to be doing like the 2 things. So we had to get really smart around how it is that we're leveraging content for our business. And at the time, we were like listening to like the likes of Gary Vee and stuff, where it was like content domination. We have to be everywhere on all the platforms. And we had 3 VAs at the time, myself and my co-founder. And literally it was like, it felt like we were a content business, as in we were just converting. So we're going from our podcasts, we were trying to be really intentional with each of the platforms. And I can go into this a little bit more, but I think we all know that all of the platforms are different. They all have different strategies. They all are pushing different types of content. And so we were literally, we had the podcast, we were trying to repurpose that as much as we could for some of these, but we know that not all of that content would work for those platforms. So we would be creating even more content on top of that. And it got to the point where, honestly, we just all burnt out. The whole team, myself, we were like, the content creation feels like the worst. When I was in banking back in my corporate career, my role was actually around exploring emerging technology. So at the time, this was like more than around about a decade ago. I was actually exploring technologies like AI, like blockchain. And so I knew about that, that technology. And so And at the time, it was very use case driven. It was like, okay, you have to kind of know exactly what the problem is that you're trying to solve. And when I looked at the whole this repurposing, part, especially starting from like something like a podcast, I was like, this is actually a really, really great use case for AI. And so we started building the Capsho platform end of 2021, and we launched mid 2022. And that's, fast forward, that's how we got here.
Yeah, no, that's great. I definitely, I feel you. I run a podcast. I have my own business outside the pod. They are linked, but again, there's a lot of work to kind of maintain these dual fronts. So I do want to ask one follow-up question about Capsho, just briefly, because there's a lot of hype about AI right now, about all these things that it's supposed to be able to do that, quite honestly, I don't think it can do. Uh, so I'm curious, from your point of view, with your solution, like,
Mm.
how does it differentiate itself in real terms from your competitors? Like, how are you actually helping your customers?
Yeah, there are a couple, we were really intentional, by way of background. Obviously you can see that I've had this entrepreneurship journey. When we had the
Mm.
podcast, we were very much, because we were coaches, so we were very much in that expert, like teaching, I guess, quote unquote, teaching space. And so when we designed the platform, we designed it for people like us, entrepreneurs who are teaching through, whether it's a audio, through podcast, or whether it's through YouTube. And so we actually built in marketing strategies into the platform. So we worked with, because we're not the experts at all things, very very aware of that. And so we actually worked with particular experts in their spaces. So the likes of Katie Brinkley in social media. So she has this 4-post strategy that we actually built into the platform. And that 4-post strategy is, how do we take people from awareness to action through our posts on, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. We worked with, likes of Damon Burden on the blogging side to be like, okay, well, how can we actually structure a blog that can be optimized as best as possible? Because there are other technical things, that we know goes into sort of, getting found through SEO, through organic search and things like that. But at least from a content perspective, like what is it that we can do? And we built that in. We worked with like JP High Tech and Roberto Blake on like the YouTube side of things. So we spent a lot of time actually being really intentional with, again, we don't just want to like kind of give people rubbish, or
Yes.
trash, I guess you say it. We actually want it to work. And that's how we design the platform first and foremost. So you'll actually see when you use it that there are you'll see how things are structured, and especially like the social media, like it actually will take you through, this is how you use it if you wanted to follow Katie's, 4-post social media strategy, things like that. The other thing too, when we built it, was we wanted it to be really smart around, because we got a lot of feedback, because we were actually early. So when you think about timeline, we launched mid 2022. ChatGPT only really came onto the scene from a mass perspective end of that year, early 2023. So we were actually, like, we were kind of facing a bit of headwinds because no one really knew this AI thing. And when they kind of exploded, it was like, oh, this is what AI is. And it didn't have to explain what AI was. But time and again, people would be like, oh gosh, AI just, sounds so generic, or you can, it's like the treasure trove of, it's like all these things. So we put a lot of time and effort into actually creating a self-learning platform. So every time you make edits inside of Capsho, it will actually learn from those edits. So if you like to have a particular tagline that you always start your posts or your show notes with, it will actually learn that and will actually start to draft it with, in that way, with your tone of voice, with how you like to structure things. So it's truly, and we've gotten this feedback like that, it is the highest quality content that they've seen any AI software
Yeah, and
provide.
I think that's important because yeah, it is, that's that's the issue, right? Is the quality. And for a lot of AI tools, it's just not there. So
Yeah.
that's pretty interesting to hear you say that's your focus and that's what you're working on. And you've gotten it to a certain point, and I'm sure you're going to get it to an even better point moving forward. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
One of the things that you mentioned is you've got some frameworks built into these let's call them AI helpers, right, on the side to
Yes.
help you create some of these social posts, for example. And I want to talk a little bit more about that with you because you actually have a framework that you wanted to share with me and my audience called the 3 Say Me posts.
Yes.
So I was hoping you could just kind of give us a basic introduction of what is that framework? What does it mean? What does it look like?
Yeah, for sure. So this framework is for people who are looking to convert their audience on Facebook into genuine leads and have conversations with people where you can uncover needs. You can even build your list off the back of this. It's actually a really, really great strategy. This is something that I worked with Jenna Larson from Group Track CRM on. And it is incredibly effective. Now, caveat, it's incredibly effective if you have the right audience following you. So that's a big one because I think a lot of us might not or might be struggling with that. And we can get into, some ways to start to build that audience. But so that's one. And the second caveat is obviously, like with everything messaging based, it's always test and learn. So if you're not actually hitting the right pain point, then but you have the right audience following you, for example, it's not going to work. If you don't have the right audience, obviously it's not going to work. So that's kind of the two caveats that I wanted to provide. So this will work as long as you have the right audience and you are hitting the right pain points for them.
So can
So
you
basically,
before we go further, I'm sorry, can you kind of break down what does the right audience mean in this context?
so basically, whatever you do. So for us, back when we had a coaching business for e-commerce brands, the right audience for us would have been, you know, it's like small, like solopreneur e-com brands who were maybe just starting or just starting to scale. And they were struggling with their digital marketing efforts. And digital marketing could be anything from copy to obviously, what they're doing on social, to blog, like, basically all the content side of things. So, I would be finding people and I'd be going to like different Facebook groups. I'd be like partnering with people who were also serving a similar audience. That was how I was growing my audience on Facebook. So it really depends on what business you're in, who you're like. It really comes down to your ideal client. You
Okay,
really
right.
want your ideal client, to be following you.
Okay,
On
cool.
these
So just yeah,
platforms.
so then I think your caveats are like you've to implement this successfully, we are assuming you've done some basic customer research. We've figured out some pain points. We've done that basic business work, and
Mhm.
now we're ready to
Yes.
start posting. Okay, cool. All
Yes,
right.
exactly. Okay, so the way that this works is that I'll do it from the perspective of like we're creating content. So, for example, John, you could even take this episode, you could put it into Capsho, and Capsho will actually create a checklist lead magnet for you. And what that it could be based on this conversation, the 3 posts to get leads on Facebook, right? So it's like post 1, post 2, post 3, or it could be the 10 steps to XYZ or 5, you know. So it's a checklist lead magnet that Capsho will actually create. Now, for people who don't want to use Capsho or even AI and they just want to try out these posts without even creating lead magnet, you can do that. You just post it, and then after the fact, you will have to create it because you want to fulfill your promise. But essentially, it's centered on the fact that you have a resource that is going
Mhm.
to be valuable for the audience, the right audience that's following you, and for the right pain point that they have, right? And so when we get into the posts, there's 3 posts, and the whole purpose of them is for people to literally raise their hands. I shouldn't say literally, digitally raise their hands and say me. So the first post is it's a really quick, it's one of those big white text on the purple background posts that we all see on
Yeah.
Facebook, incredibly scroll stopping, right? Like you just can't help but want to read, this short sentence. And all it will say is, currently working on a checklist that XYZ, so insert, like pain point solution, who's interested or who wants it, right? And you can see the way that's positioned is for people to say me. So if you have the right audience, you've hit the right pain point, you will have a lot of people in the comments saying me. And what you want to do then for all of those people who are commenting is you want to then go, great, I'm going to send it to you. Check your DMs. And that is when you actually start to convert that audience into leads, because they've given you permission to now actually have that conversation with them. That's a trigger point, right? So you will have a conversation with them. You'll give them the lead magnet. And I say you can actually build your email list off the back of this, because you could actually put the lead magnet behind a email quote unquote paywall as well, if you wanted to, but you don't have to. You can also just send them the lead magnet through the DMs. But that gives you an excuse to then start uncovering needs. Like, hey, I'd love to know what made you want this resource? Like, what are you struggling with right now? Like, having that conversation that then could lead to an invitation to whatever your funnel is, whether that's a webinar, whether that's a challenge, whether it's just a sales conversation. So that's the first post. Incredibly, incredibly effective for people who have that immediate. They read it. They're like, yes, that's me, and they're an action taker, right? So that's the first Say Me post. Any questions on that one, John?
I don't think so. I think that I like how you lead with value. I'll have a comment. I like how you lead with value, because I don't need another thing that doesn't answer a problem. But yeah, like to your point, if you can nail something that's going to help me out and you can give it to me for free, like that excites me. So yeah, sure, send me that thing. I'd love to see that thing.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. I understand why that's such a good lead magnet.
Yeah. So that's the first Say Me post. The second one is in what I call the why post. And the why post is really going into the why. So these are for people who are a little bit more, they're maybe not as immediate. They're not as action oriented. They might be a little bit more skeptical, or they're just just slower twitch, I guess, with acting. And so this is where you want to go into the why this is important, like delving a little bit deeper into maybe the problem or the pain point, and why is it that you actually created this resource. So that's kind of the second, but this call to action is still the same. You still want to be like, I've been working on a resource that actually solves for this. Who wants it? And again, you want to get the me's. You want to get the digital hands raised. And it's the same, anyone who raises their hands there, it's the same process. Get them in the DMs, start uncovering needs. So that's the second post. And then the third post, I call it the BTS post. It's not the boy band. It's just stands for behind the scenes.
All right. That would have been cool, but okay.
Yeah. I mean, definitely if that's, if that vibes the audience, I would want you to definitely post about the boy band. But no, the BTS post is really about, I keep it simple. Or you can do anything from keeping it really simple to going a little bit more in depth. So the simple one is literally it's behind the scenes. Like, it's a shot of you maybe working on a lead magnet. It's a reminder for people to be like, hey, don't forget, I've been working on this really, really valuable resource that does these amazing things. Who wants it? Right? Or it can be, what I really like for people who have the wins and the case studies, is to actually go into more of a case study. Whether it's a client, maybe it's even yourself, hey, I followed this myself and these are the results that I got. So it's a little bit of behind the scenes of, the actual strategy working. So that's kind of the third, and that really, hooks in the really logical, I guess, quote unquote, buyers who are like, skeptical, but okay, I want to now know what results you're getting. You're telling me that I'm in, like, yeah, say me. I'm saying me. And then the process is just the same after that. So those are the three Say Me posts.
Yeah, so I like that. It's simple, it's easy to remember, easy to implement, and then you're targeting. I feel like tell me where I'm wrong, but I feel like you're targeting with the first post. I don't know if impulse buyers is the right word, but the people that are really excited.
The emotional, yeah.
There you go.
More emotional buyers, yeah.
Second post is for those people that need just a little bit more encouragement, and then the third post is much more geared towards, yeah, that's great, but I need to see some numbers or some proof or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's it. It's pretty simple. And by the way, Capsho does actually create these posts for you. So that's an example of something of strategy that we've built into the platform, so that it's designed to actually help you get results, rather than just like, here's some content, go forth and vomit all over the internet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Please don't do that. I don't need to read any more of that in my LinkedIn feed.
Yes.
So I think that this framework would probably work on pretty much any social platform. But we're specifically talking about this in maybe the Facebook landscape. And so I did want to ask you a question about that because a lot of people seem to view Facebook as like the dinosaur of social media. Like that's where your
Mm.
grandma goes to look at cat pictures. Like who's on Facebook? Um, and so I do want to know from your perspective, your experience, do you find Facebook is still a good place to get leads?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, my opinion is that any platform is a good place to get leads. It's just again going to depend. I used to say, and I do still believe this. It's like, where is your audience, right? But I feel like our audience is everywhere. They're really on all platforms. So I really more so default to like, what is it the platform that you like to be on? Because like back in the days when I was saying that we were like trying to be on all platforms and everywhere all at once. The reason why we not only burnt out, but it wasn't really working was because you need to really know a platform to work it. And the reason why is because you need to be able to spend time on there. It's not, just like we call it like post and ghost. It's like
Mm.
posting and ghosting doesn't actually work. And you also need to spend time on these platforms because they're constantly changing. The algorithms are changing. The things that the type of content that they're trying to push is changing. And unless you're kind of aware of that, you're going to start to see potentially a decline in the reach of your content. And for you to kind of stay on top of that, and I don't mean like you have to be like an absolute expert on the platform, but you kind of you get a sense, right? If you're on there like
Yeah.
kind of every day or every couple of days, you kind of know what is going on with that platform. It means that you have to be on there. And so that's why I actually always say like my recommendation is always max 2 platforms and choose the ones that you actually want to spend time on, because that is how you're going to actually get, because you want to spend time on there. So, which means you're going to get more engagement, you're going to engage more, and therefore you're going to get more reach, and the good things that come off the back of that. So, yeah. So to come back to your original question, like Facebook, it, any platform can work for you because I would hazard a guess that your audience is on any platform, but where do you like to hang out? Like me personally, I do like Facebook, and probably LinkedIn. I I used to, and I go through phases. Like, in my previous business when I was in hospitality, I was spending a lot of time on Instagram actually. And then, the changes were made, stuff, reels got introduced. That to me, I'm like a dinosaur myself. So I was like, oh, I just can't deal with that.
I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you.
But now I'm starting to get a little bit more back into Instagram. So, that's what it's always going to come down to. What are the platforms that you actually like to be on?
Yeah. And I think that's such an important key to, to running social for your business is if you don't want to be on the platform, then don't be on the platform. Don't,
Mm.
in my opinion, like don't listen to the influencers who say you better be on TikTok. Well, look, I'm a 43-year-old guy. I'm just not into TikTok. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen for me. I can't be on X because I value my mental health. I'm sorry. I can't do that.
Yes, exactly.
Though, to your point, I think, yeah, our audience could be in many places, but you're gonna have a lot more fun and be a lot more effective if you kind of stick to the ones you actually want to be on. I appreciate that.
Yes.
One thing you mentioned in your background is you've done a lot of, you were in banking and then you got into entrepreneurship and actually on your LinkedIn profile. And by the way, thank you for saying this on your profile. You started a lot of businesses. Some of them succeeded, some of them failed. And I appreciate that honesty because I see a lot of people on social media who could be more honest. And I
Mm.
always appreciate seeing that. Because as a fellow entrepreneur, yes, not everything works. Some days are great, some days are terrible. A lot of days are kind of in between. How do
Yes.
you navigate that roller coaster and maintain your confidence, your drive, your mental health? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, and it's a tough one because I mean we're all super different. So how we deal with things is incredibly different. Like my co-founder, she struggles a little bit more with like anxiety and and
Mhm.
she gets a little bit more anxious and stuff. So I know I have to be, really 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 mindful of how I position things and how early, if I need to break bad news or something, it's like preparing almost like preparing her for that through, so we all of that to say that we all deal with things so differently. For me, like I find that I always default to being, and this is kind of like sort of being in the DNA of an entrepreneur, like leaning really heavily into almost delusional optimism. Like is
Yes.
probably what I like what I've always kind of been my crutch. Not to say that, it's blind, you're just relying on blind hope and faith all the time, because that also is not a strategy. But it's kind of, if you believe in something so much that that it's just a tweak here, a tweak there, whether it's a tweak in your messaging, whether it's even a tweak in your audience, whether it's a tweak in your product, like whatever that is, that will then get you, the results that you're looking for, then, that's kind of like you have to hold on to that delusional optimism. Now, if you get to a point where, and this is, I mentioned the fashion technology business, we failed that. And we were very intentional with failing it because we didn't want to invest in development build, without really testing it. And when we tested it, so we were in New York. We were in New York at the time, and we were talking to a lot of women in the NYU campus, the Columbia campus, on Wall Street, like young professionals. And we sort of, people, when you have these discussions with people, they're super lovely because everyone wants to be supportive. And they're like, yeah, I love this idea. And, this is totally going to work. But when you then start to delve deeper, what we found was that, yes, the idea that we had was solving a problem, but it wasn't a big enough problem that people would very quickly change their habits for. And that was the bit for us where we were like, oh, I don't think it's worth continuing to follow this, because we could, sure, we could rely on delusional, optimism and just like make it happen somehow. But we knew ourselves that we had a very, very short runway, and we needed to make something work quicker than probably what this would have been. That was a decision point for us. Now, some people who might have the luxury of time and a little bit more money could probably have followed that through and could very well have made that work. But we were in just the situation that we were in. So that's kind of, why I say, like, we're all different and we all handle things differently. And I think the situation, the circumstance we're in will actually help us dictate, hey, like, how do we handle this and what decisions are the best for us at that time?
Yeah. And I think to your point, like, because I'm in the same boat, you have to have a strong sense and belief of what I'm doing is valuable. It aligns with my own values. It's valuable to other people. And I know that I can make this work. I may not know how quite yet, but I know that I can
Yes.
make this work.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
So, Deirdre, it's been great talking with you. And I'm sure there are going to be people out there who want to know more about you, want to know more about Capsho.
Mhm.
Where can people go to learn more about these things?
Yes, thank you. I would love for, if you're an entrepreneur who podcasts, you have a YouTube channel, maybe you create training courses, maybe you just like going for a walk and just, you're happy to record a 2-minute audio clip on your phone. I would love for you to try out Capsho. So all you would do is upload your audio or video content, and basically off the back of that, Capsho will do the rest of the repurposing work for you, in terms of creating the content. You'd still have to publish it because we don't want people to blindly just push things to platforms. But essentially, Capsho is there to help you get results from your content. And so I'd love for you to try it. We have a 7-day free trial. You just have to go to capsho.com, capsho.com. And as you sign up for your free trial, if you put in the code forever50, then you will be able to get 50% off the plan for as long as you're a Capshovian. So
Wow.
that's just something that I wanted to gift your audience. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, we'll have that in the show notes, so you don't have to remember that. Write it down. It'll just be right down below where you're watching or listening. Well, Deirdre, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been a pleasure.
It has been amazing. Thank you so much, John.
You're welcome. And to our listeners, if you've enjoyed our discussion today, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. I bring on all the best experts I can find in the content creation space. I get them to share their secrets. I get them to give you 50% off for life on products so that you can grow your business. And with that, I hope you have a great day. We'll see you next time on the Content Creators Unite podcast.